Hey, hi. How are you all? It's great to see old friends and new friends. It's wonderful to be with you. Hi, Elisa, coming all the way to us from Paris. It's so great to see you. Hi, Adrian from Hungary. I love it. I love my European and my Latin American and my Orient folks, everybody coming from all over the world. I love it. Every now and then we get somebody from, even from Africa. So I'm so excited that this little work is starting to become a bigger work and go out into the world with so much energy. Today is Anatomy Friday. Sacred Anatomy Friday. So what that means is that you can ask me anything you want to know about, oh, Michelle's from France. All right. Lovely. I love it. You know, anything you want. You can ask me anything at all. And I am raring to go. And I've got right beside me my book. Your Sacred Anatomy is the most complete encyclopedia on the sacred anatomy that I could possibly write. I have, in fact, been working on, with Cheryl, my assistant, I've been working on the next iteration of this because it's been since 2011 when I finished writing it, that and a lot of stuff has been added to the sacred anatomy. We've discovered a lot more parts of the anatomy. So today, if you ask me questions about things that are not even in the book, I'll be happy to answer them. So there's a lot of new stuff. Don't hesitate to jump in and stretch out. I'm looking forward to it. So my name is Desda Zuckerman, and I live in Northern California, of course. This is where I would live, right? I live in Marin County, which you can't scratch yourself without running to another healer. So there's a lot of alternative thinking here, a lot of alternative healing work here, and a lot of musical people here, which is fantastic. And I'm excited that you've somehow or another stumbled across me, come here to get more information. I'm even seeing a couple of people who used to come to my Anatomy Fridays that were live here in my hometown that I used to do. And I used to get, 20 or 30 people in the classes there. And I see a couple of folks here from that time, which is wonderful. So, without further ado, shall we jump in and talk about what the sacred anatomy is? Let me give you just a thumbnail about that. So the thumbnail I would give you is the sacred anatomy is your subtle energetic field that surrounds you, that includes, hey, Amy, one of my old friends, hi. Anyway, it includes the physical body and the electromagnetic field. So your sacred anatomy is way more than what is commonly thought of as the human aura. And it includes that. It includes it. It's a system within this larger structure. The sacred anatomy has 7 systems and thousands of parts of anatomy, much like you would think that an energetic body actually would have a lot of different sections and pieces. It is as complex as the physical body. Each system has its own offering. We have one system that's called the layers, that's like the organs of the sacred anatomy. We have another system called the template, which is in fact the nervous system and part of the digestive system of the sacred anatomy. We have another system called the blended energy system, which most people are exposed to through chakras. So we have chakras in the blended energy system, but we have 13 of them. Not 7, not 8, we got 13. So it's a bigger It's a bigger system. There's more to it, and it's a little bit like a cardiovascular system. Then we've got the bones of light, which of course are the skeletal system, and we just love that skeletal system. There's so much to it. It includes, in fact, the physical body too. So our physical skeleton and our energetic skeleton are brother and sister. They're related. They're not separate from. They're not different from each other. One is material reality, so it's materialized with electromagnetic energy, and one is the energy of consciousness, or the energy called subtle energy, which is the kind of a fifth quantum energy that I've been calling out for about 30 years. And now people are actually talking about more quantum energies. So it's exciting to think that the sacred anatomy has all these systems, that it's organized, there's a way we can interact with it, that we can actually affect it. Another system you might be interested in is the elimination system. God knows we need to eliminate energies from ourselves. And the elimination system works through the concept of non-attachment. So when we release attachment, we release subtle energy. So this is an interesting thing. Then there's the human electromagnetic field. Now that is the one most people refer to as the aura. So the human electromagnetic field is right around us. We use it to do EKGs and all other kinds, a bunch of other kinds of scans. And so there's a way we use our own electromagnetic field a lot in this world, and it's a system within the sacred anatomy system. Then there's the final system, one of the ones that I love the most, which is called the harmonizing network. And it's a system of subtle sound. It isn't physical electromagnetically generated sound. It is subtle sound. So it's the sounds of the spheres. It's outside of what is normally understood to be sound, but it is in fact the thing that holds us together, and you can compare it to the chemical system in our physical body. Okay, so that's a brief thumbnail intro, and now I want to invite you to just ask any question you have about the skills, the techniques, and also the pieces of work that we do with the sacred anatomy. And I see Anita is here from Italy. Welcome. It's great to see you.
She's my nephew, Elisa.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So she's your niece?
Yes.
Well, all right, Elisa. We find that Elisa is a practitioner, and so there's a bunch of them here on the call. Practitioners, yay! All right, so let's hear some questions. I'm up for it.
All right, Desda.
Oh, and Tejas is from India in Asia.
Right on.
Wow! Oh my goodness, I'm so happy. Thank you for joining from so far away. We're right next to each other now with these wonderful opportunities. Okay, let's go.
The first question is in the layers system. And this is how the primal layer, the question is, how does the primal layer's immunity relate to the spiritual layer's spiritual river? And does one affect the other in support of our own immune system's higher functioning?
Who asked that question?
I did.
Oh, Cheryl, you character. So, hey, Cheryl, can you show first, can you show a layers picture, and then can you show the primal layer with the immunity, and then the spiritual layer with the spiritual river, so everybody knows what we're talking about. Okay, here's the 8 layers of the one body, and this is like a half a grapefruit cut open, or so you can look in, and these are the 8 layers. We've got the bio layer, which is obviously your physical body, and then we've got the emotional layer, which is the pink around there. The primal layer is green. The mental layer is yellow. The cognitive layer is a kind of turquoise, combination of turquoise and teal. And then the spiritual layer is lavender. The etheric layer is orange. The soul layer is a rainbow swirl. So these layers are all very distinct and the colors are very consistent. Now I want to make something really clear. Your aura is completely personalized. It looks unique to you. Everybody has slightly different colored auras and they sort of look like Cheryl's background, you know, wild swirling energies, and they're kind of moving in a toroidal fashion. So they move like this energetically. So that's an aura. The sacred anatomy is consistent. So it isn't vastly different from one person to another. It's pretty consistent. So let's see a picture of the green layer, which is the primal layer, and I'll talk a little bit about it. Okay, so here's the primal layer. So the closest into your physical body is instinct, and that's that bottom strata. So we're looking at the strata of the primal layer. There are 4 strata: instinct, legacy, DNA, and tribe. And those strata are stacked, and everything moves out in concentric circles from your center, which is your physicality. The primal layer has running through it, with its roots in instinct and its trunk in legacy and its branches in DNA and its leaves in tribe. So this I call the immunotree. And the immunotree has a lot to do with allowing the immune system of the subtle anatomy to truly function, so that when we have insults or injuries or even dis-ease that affect the subtle systems, that this layer is our primordial information, and it goes to work rebuilding, restructuring, reinfusing with energy the entirety of the sacred anatomy. So it's important for you to understand that the sacred anatomy stretches 20 feet above us, left, right, back, front. It's all around us. Now, everybody doesn't look exactly the same. Some people have different shapes than others. Some people are kind of like columns. Some people are like triangles. Some people are sort of like amoebas. And some people are ovals. So because I needed to like pick a sort of a shape to represent what the subtle anatomy looked like when I did all of the color pictures that are in my book, there's over 88 graphics. So I had to find something that could be consistent. I chose the oval because when people seem to get more cleared out and opened up and start really expressing their authentic nature, they tend to go more to an oval shape. So that's why. And so that's the concentric circles that are moving out. And as I said, this is just to give us an idea of what it is we're looking at, not to analyze or organize or focus on one particular person. So you've got your instinct strata there, and the instinct strata is survival. This is, stove is hot. I'm not safe. Or this is really great. So all of those instinctual responses are captured in the instinct strata, except that this is your soul's history. So your entire soul's experience of instinct. So everything from like being an archer in the Roman armies to, being a soldier in World War II, or having these kinds of instinctual reactive jobs, maybe a hunter in the 1800s, hunting for food for your family and worrying about lack of fuel for fire for the winter. These kinds of instinctual behaviors really are held here. I like to think of the primal layer as the dinosaur's lair. I mean, it's where the dinosaur lays its eggs in us, you know, where we understand the ancient and the primordial and the extremely primal energetic. Then we go to legacy, and legacy is it goes beyond like your heritage. It has to do with your connections with ancient teachings, with things that are unspoken and unseen. It has to do with the mysteries. Last night I went out and did something I love to do, and that is to go outside at night in my garden and look at the moon. And that's a legacy action, you know, the mystery of the moon, and looking up at her and thinking, she is still so mysterious. We know so little about her. And there she is above us, shining that beautiful light. And it's that lovely feeling of, I don't know what's happening. I don't know where to go. So that's where our legacy is stored. And we touch into that to understand more deeply about things. And then there is DNA. And DNA is this extraordinary blueprint of what we are. Well, we don't just have a blueprint of our physical body. We have a blueprint for our subtle structure. And in fact, those two blueprints work together. So this DNA is that inclusivity. And then we have tribe, and our tribe is the family that we find ourselves in, the people we connect to. If the family isn't our tribe, we have other people that become our tribe, our connections, our instincts. So the immunity is part of the interconnectivity of the primal layer. And yes, even though between the primal, there's the mental, the cognitive, and then you go to the spiritual layer, there is an interconnection between the primal layer and the spiritual layer. So let's look at the spiritual layer. And I'll try to go a little faster because I want to get to everybody's questions. I see there's some questions now in the chat, which is great. Okay, so here's the spiritual layer, and you got to remember there's stuff between the primal and the spiritual. So what we have here in the spiritual is what I call the spirit river. And the spirit river moves through the guides and guardians strata, the elemental strata, the fairy folk strata, the deity, the angelic, the deity, and don't forget intuition right there in the center, as well as the higher energies of angelic and deity. So we have this river that runs through us, and there is a way that we can travel the river and dock in each of these strata and go into connection and an experience of elementals, fairy folk, and angels, deities, guides and guardians. And then our intuition, which is extremely different from instinct, our intuition is inspired here in the spiritual layer. The spiritual layer is further out. It's about 15 feet out from your physical body, and it has this tremendous cache of information for us because we can dive into each of these places. The combination and the connection between the immunity and the spiritual layer is that the spiritual river runs through the entire structure. So it doesn't just stop in the spiritual layer. It actually runs down and through. So it, in effect, waters the immunity and cares for it, allows it to be fed by our spiritual nature. So that's a very fast description of the spiritual layer, and clearly I can go on forever about it. But I should probably try to answer some of the questions that have come up other than the one from Cheryl. Okay, what do we got, Cheryl? What's next?
All right. Well, Anita had said she's from Italy, and she often feels very strong vibrations and energies from the places she's surrounded by. and she tends to notice more the negative ones because they make her feel uneasy and cause her to walk away from that situation or place and miss out on some experiences. So she was wondering, is there a way to be able to distinguish if what I'm feeling comes from my higher self or is just a feeling of my ego, which might just be a reflection of my fears or anxieties? And whether I should indeed listen to that energy or I can find a way to share the moment with that feeling without having to leave.
That's a really deep question. Anita, thank you for asking it. I just want to send a shout out to Linda Kirby. Hi. Hi, Linda. It's good to see you, dear. So, wow. Where do I start? Yeah, Italy is chock-a-block with stuff. So much antiquity there. And when we have all these ancient buildings and places where, God knows what happened, people died of the plague or people were executed or there was a battle or who knows, some kind of thing happened there. We all run into this in all of the places we live, in all our cities and all those kinds of, huge amassing of humanity. There's gonna be stuff, right? The thing I would suggest is to take my edge class. I mean, this is the first thing I would suggest to you. And the reason I would tell you that is because before I learned about how to use my sacred anatomy as a way to be in the world, I experienced just a tsunami of energy. It was constant. It never turned off. I see clairvoyantly all the time. It doesn't ever turn off. So I had to figure this out. And the truth of the matter is, I wanted to make an offer to the world. I wanted to give of myself. And if I am constantly being assaulted by energy, I can't, right? So I truly understand your concern, Anita. And my heart goes out to you that you're living, here you are in Italy, the place where so much has occurred and there's so much history just in the soil, So the edge class teaches you how to place your awareness at the subtle anatomy edge and how to experience life from this place, how to move in the world from this place. And what happens is that you are not at effect of all that energy as a result. There are 5 steps to the edge, and each one of them is a spiritual practice that teaches you how to embody, how to ground, how to experience the distinction between your electromagnetic field and your subtle field, as well as how to travel to the edge in different ways. So anybody can choose the one they like the most. My idea is if it's not fun, why are we doing it? So I try to make it fun, and we can go to the edge joyfully. And then there's intention setting and addressing the monkey mind. So really, the edge practice is a form of mindfulness for super sensitive people who are trying to exist in this world. In hundreds of years ago, you might have just joined a convent. It's like just gone and joined a convent, and just like, or you might have become a hermit and lived on the top of a mountain. So everybody on this call, I would be willing to bet, is a sensitive. Every single one of you should take my edge class. And every single one of you could benefit from it. Because placing your awareness at the edge of the sacred anatomy puts you in the seat of compassion. So when you're with an energy that's toxic or difficult, at the edge, you simply notice it. you actually don't swallow it, take it in, start living it, trying to purify it through your body. You don't do that. So I think there were other parts to your question that I'm not answering. I'm so sorry. But right now, I want you to know that the kind of energy work I teach is not based in fear. It's not based in I better use protection, because if I don't protect myself from all these terrible things that are out there in the world, then I will be wounded and hurt. I will be destroyed. So what I teach is distinction, discernment, and awareness. So when you become more capable of discerning what it is that's happening, you of course realize, oh, this isn't me. This isn't about me. This is going on over there. And then when you make those distinctions, when you create discernment, when you make distinctions, and then you begin to work with the energy of the structure, you become more awake and aware to who you truly are as a positive force in the world. And I'm going to make the claim, you get happier. You really get happier. Because it's really not happy making getting attacked all day long. It's not. And I know just how you felt and feel. I used to feel that way too. But I don't anymore. And I haven't for a very long time using the edge. So anyway, I think that I'm going to leave this question now, Anita, and thank you for asking such a beautiful query. I mean, I really, you're lovely. What part of Italy are you in?
I live in Verona.
Ah, Verona. Verona, where my beloved Elisa spends a lot of time. Yeah. All right. Well, that was my answer for you. Let's see what the next question brings.
All right, this next query is from Nazi, and she says, if an issue is not resolved, it is not debris until we are no longer attached. Debris is moving to the universal, has no identification with it. How is it that the universal attraction happens with the debris having no identity when the universal attraction is seeking only universal like energy or similar energy? Does the debris, once released, become more universal like?
I think I'm going to ask you to read the first part of the question and I'll answer that, and then I'll answer the second part of the question.
Okay. She says, if an issue is not resolved, it is not a debris.
That's correct. If an issue won't resolve, it's probably not just you picked up debris from somewhere and you're letting it go. It most likely would be a pathology of some sort, or it would be a misalignment of some sort, or it would represent the need for deeper clearing, deeper addressing of that, whatever that is. Okay? So what's the next part?
How is it that the universal attraction happens with the debris having no attachment, is what you would say, having no attachment or identity, when the universal attraction is seeking only universal-like energy? So she's looking for, how does the universe pull non-attached energy out of the structure?
Yeah, well, the complexity of that is pretty deep, Nazi, and thank you for asking it. It's a good question. It's a really good question. So when we use the operating principle, one of the operating principles of sacred anatomy is like seeks like, right? We know about this. This is something that other communities share the idea of, and that's true. Like seeks like. So attached energy does not leave the structure. If you have an attachment or a charge about something, you can't get rid of it. So if you do a clearing of part of the structure, but you're still attached to an upset or an angry event, you're going to hang on to that. as you release that, it goes out of your structure through the elimination system when you no longer are attached to it. So as you release attachment, so you release debris. All right. How does unattached energy come into the structure? It is essentially source energy that enters the structure. We only have attachment if we experience energy coming from outside ourselves that comes into the structure. It is only an experience. We are only experiencing an attachment. We attach to whatever it is, and we give it a name, a feeling, a connection. Nothing sneaks up on the structure. I mean, it just is happening all the time. We're always picking up stuff and dealing with it. And if we have no attachment or charge to it, it leaves instantaneously, because the universal seeks that which is non-attached. So the universal, which is around us, pulls this energy to it. Now, can it happen the other way, where universal energies come in and we're not attached to them? Not really. Because anytime something enters your structure, you become attached to it. Even if it's a universal source energy, like the rose red light of love or universal love and light, it comes into your structure, you become attached to it, and you give it significance. So I think I answered your question. Did I answer your question, Nazi? Good. Okay. Great. Sometimes when a question is really long, I have trouble fighting, where in the question, yeah. Okay.
I
was referring to the non-attachment attachment aspect of universal. So yes, you did answer my question, and thank you.
Yeah, I think I did. All right. You're welcome, Nazi. Okay, what's the next one, Cheryl?
Michelle H. says, could Desda say a little bit more about the sound that holds us all together, the sound of the spheres that she mentioned right at the beginning? And she says, thank you.
Yeah, the sound of the spheres. So the structure generates sound. We are a symphony walking around. Every single part of our anatomy has its own sound, its own tone that it creates. So there are people, some of you may be here in this call, who hear. That's called clairaudience. And usually it's like, oh, I hear a voice or something. But actually, clairaudience hear way more than voices. They hear people's disharmonic frequencies. Have you ever experienced someone who just, it was like chalkboard, scratching with your fingernails, and it was just like that feeling of, and you could hear it almost, right? That's how disharmonic their energetic was. And it's disharmonic because some of the systems are not harmonized with each other. So it's interesting to think in terms of systems as having a specific tone or frequency, a wave, if you're looking at it electromagnetically, they have a sound that they can connect to. And, if you study Indian singing, for example, like I did, I studied Indian singing. There are more tones in the Indian scales than in the Western scales. And if you remember the well-tempered clavier, clavier, not clavicle, clavier. And it was this moment where everything started to be tuned to 440, but before it had been tuned to A was, I think, 330 or 432, that was what it was. And so you had You have ancient music that's written for A tuned to 432, and you have more contemporary music that's A at 440. But which one of those pitches resonates with the human body? And did A 432 resonate more with medieval people than A 440 does with people after the Industrial Revolution? So these are questions that, musicians ask themselves and sound healers ask themselves. And what you want to know about your sacred anatomy is that it's tuned to fundamental energies. And those energies are so important because they hold us together. So we are connected by subtle sound frequencies that are like otherworldly sounds that hold us together. And this was the last system that I discovered and the last system that I mapped and learned how to work with. And the tones were revealed to me. So we have 9 distinct tones that the sacred anatomy makes itself. And then within those, we have overtones and undertones and all kinds of different ways that the musical nature of our structure works in the world. And if you think of it this way, if you're in complete harmony and all your systems are harmonized, you're like a beautiful symphonic chord that's being played by a huge orchestra walking through the world. And if they're not in tune, you're a little more disharmonic in places. So there are healers in the world who listen for disharmonic frequencies and then work with them. So interesting. Anyway, so I think I answered your question. Michelle, was that good? You need more? Okay, let's go to the next one.
All right, the next question is from Chenson. She says, which areas of the subtle energy anatomy signify qualities of the divine feminine other than the acceptance strata within the mental layer?
Well, the caduceus, which is the vertebral column of the core, can we see a picture of that? So the core runs from top to bottom, and it is the divine light within you. It is the presence of totality within every single person. And there is a column of the bones of light called the caduceus that holds it up. And when you see it, I'll share with you. The divine feminine and the divine masculine merge here in the caduceus. Poor Cheryl, she's got like 1,000 graphics to pick the right one. Anyway, so here we go. All right, so there's the caduceus. So coming from below is the divine feminine rising from, you can think of it as rising from the earth. And it comes up and crosses all the way through the structure. We unfortunately can't really see it, the central part, because of the little guy there. Is there another picture that you've got, Cheryl? The little guy is obscuring things. So the caduceus supports parts of the chakras, the currents of the chakras, the incoming and the outgoing currents of the chakra in 13 locations. It crosses in 13 places to do that. There we go. That's a little better picture. So coming up from the bottom is the caduceus, and it goes all the way up the front, and then it quantum leaps through the core and goes out and down the bottom of the core sheath. So the core sheath is around the core, and we're not seeing the core sheath in this picture, but what we're seeing is the core right underneath the caduceus. It isn't exactly like that. There's actually a sheath between the two. So the caduceus is rising, 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 and then goes through the core and then down. And as it's coming down, all the way down, it's the yin descending. So yin arising and then yin descending at the rear. And it comes down and it's doing the same thing at the back. It's crossing and supporting chakra currents as they come in and out through the core. And it's also at the same time holding up the core. From above, we have the yang descending. So yang descends and comes all the way down, crossing yin, crossing yin, crossing yin. So it goes all the way to the bottom, quantum leaps through the core, and then comes all the way back up the back, quantum leaps at the top and comes down. So we have essentially got two currents that are closed. So they're sealed, closed currents. And these two currents of the yin energetic and the yang energetic, which is, you can think of it as feminine and masculine. You can think of it as aggressive and passive. You can think of it as solar and lunar. You can think of it a million different ways. But what we've got is at the very core of who and what we are, we've got the divine feminine manifest as a flowing, moving current within us, so that it's supporting the energetic of the core, which is the totality, the whole source within us. It's like a divine fragment within us. And then we individuate. You saw in that picture actually a thing called the fountainhead. And that's how we individuate and we create the sacred anatomy out of individuated currents, which break off from the core. So they only do that up there, and they break off and they create with their single current swirl in the soul layer, which is that rainbow layer that you guys were looking at. They create a wonderful, wonderful structure called the sacred anatomy. So at the very core of who we are, the divine feminine and the divine masculine share in the support of the totality, the divine. So within us, at the very center of who and what we are, is this magical thing called the divine feminine and the divine masculine. And it's not about gender. It's important to realize. It has nothing to do with gender. It has to do with really solar and lunar aspects. The hidden or the not hidden. Okay. Thanks, Chenson. Great question. What's another question, Cheryl?
Thank you.
Jasleen, and I hope I'm saying that correctly, asks, can Desda elaborate on how to connect to angels, guides, and other higher beings?
Develop a meditation practice, a spiritual practice. If you don't have one, you need to start one. Sometimes people have a lot of trouble meditating or clearing their mind. It is important to realize that you are already in touch with these higher beings. They're already around you, that they already exist in your world. And so it's a matter of allowing yourself to tune into them. If you are not able to find spaciousness within yourself, which is what spiritual practice allows you, is that spacious moment, that moment of quiet. If you're not able to find that, how in the world do you think you're going to be able to hear the voice of an angel? So you need a spiritual practice. Anybody who's doing any kind of subtle work in the world has to have a spiritual practice. Yasleen, that's a wonderful question, because one of the things that I love to do the most is to open up to the angelic frequency. So you can do that if you allow yourself to move out of focused concentration, and if you allow your meditation to not be about concentrating, but instead to be about the diffused focus that is much more natural and much more in sync with the energies of the spirit. So when you're meditating, if you can remember to keep your focus diffused and open, to keep yourself aware of peripheral energetic as well as above and below, to keep yourself in this place of availability to other frequencies other than what we humans think of as our human spirit. What you can find is sort of entry points into those realms. Studying great writings, reading the Bhagavad Gita, reading the Holy Scriptures of any religion will help you open yourself and crack open doors. For me, you know what I do? I read poetry. I read Rumi almost every day. I read Billy Collins, just a phenomenal poet. I read T.S. Eliot. I read poetry because for me, words are really opening. So reading poetry, diffusing your focus, meditating, praying, or contemplating every day, spending as much time as you can in nature will open you to these things. I wrote a book. Here it is. Magical Beings of the Natural World. It's a little tiny book. Takes just a couple of hours to read. And Magical Beings of the Natural World has an exercise in it that will help you connect with fairies, with elementals, with devas, with nature spirits, and with elves. So I have an exercise, and then I have 6 different ways to connect. So I would advise you, or 5, I think it's 5, not 6, but I would advise you to get that book, because in it is that exercise, Jocelyn, and it may just be the ticket for you. Okay, what's next?
Thank you, Desda.
You're welcome.
Yes, Adrian asks, if our sacred anatomy is responsive to our voice and speech, can't we just ask it to return into a more harmonious and balanced state to the degree it is possible at the time? How much knowledge and awareness from the personality or ego regarding the change that is happening within the sacred anatomy is necessary to make a positive shift?
Can you read that one again?
Sure. If our sacred anatomy is responsive to our voice and speech, can't we just ask it to return to a more harmonious and balanced state to the degree that it's available at the time?
Okay, so your own voice, first of all, your sacred anatomy is not a bully. It will never force itself on you. One of the things I do in the Edge class is introduce you to all these parts of your structure, and you meet them. And one of the things you do is ask permission to have a relationship with this part of yourself. It's an initiation of sorts. And as we begin to be initiated into this larger awareness, what happens is that we experience a kind of returning to the elemental forces within us. When we use our own voice as a way to attune the subtle and the material, we begin to see not only how important sound is and the words that we use are, but how much power we actually have. So you can't just ask your voice to do that. You actually have to sound your voice. You have to make the sound. You have to say your own name. Whenever you say your own name, just everybody do it right now. Just, my name is Desda. When I say my name, my voice resonates more. My body opens up. So that's just physically. But what's happening to your subtle structure is your subtle structure becomes aware, awakens to you. So just right now, just say your own name. Yeah. And you can even say it a couple of times. Desda, 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 say it a few times. Yeah. So it's a power word for you. Your name is powerful. Even if you are named after another person or you have a not unusual name, don't worry about it, because your sacred anatomy is resonating to you, to your name and to your voice. So that's the best way to get it to shift, Adrian. Yeah. Okay, Cheryl, what else we got?
Thank you. Michelle says, yes, you gave her a good answer, and she agrees with you about the importance of words and how they hold a frequency. Jasleen also thanks you, and Amy has a question. She
All
says,
right.
how do you differentiate between the voice of the angels and guardians and one's own true self?
Well, that's a good question, Amy, because we have to learn that we are essentially not really much different than the angels and the guardians and the fairy folk, and we are in that same group. We are also powerful beings. So when you listen to that still inner voice within, and you're hearing your own intuition, and your intuition is giving you information about something, there's generally a very kind quality and a kind of focused, centered quality of that voice. When you're hearing a guardian speak, it has a more sort of omnipresent quality, and it has a deeper resonance usually. Sometimes they'll have very different voices. If you're listening to angels, angels usually speak in thought forms. So you don't really even, you might hear music like of the spheres, but what you do is you get an impression. You get a whole picture that includes emotions, all kinds of things. You get a complete content. And so angels are very different. If you speak to specific deities, you also have that experience of thought forms. So animals speak in thought forms, very interestingly. They're very similar. Their frequencies are very similar to angels, animals. And we have an opportunity to develop our own sort of ability to extend the transmission of who we are. We have that ability. And so when you're listening to someone's voice, like you're listening to mine, you're also hearing all the guides and guardians and the spiritual teachers and the sacred anatomy angels that work with me. You're also hearing the import of their frequency. So whenever we're tuned in to the subtle and the sacred and the different, whenever we're tuned in that way, we also must include our own voice, and we must listen to that interior information. It will never speak in fear. It will never speak in anger. It will always speak as a centering, gentle, focused part of ourselves. I hope that helps. Cool. All right. Wow, we're running out of time. Well, are there more questions, or do we answer them all?
Well, we want to go back to the second part of Adrian's question, where he
Okay.
asked about, and I'm pulling that up. So how much knowledge and awareness from the personality or ego
Yeah.
is necessary regarding the change that is happening within the sacred anatomy to make that positive shift?
Very little. and it's mostly about letting go of emotional content that's stashed in your electromagnetic field that you're hanging on to, anger, frustration, irritation, lust, whatever, you name it. It hangs out in your electromagnetic field as a signature, and you want to release all of those. So as time passes, as you learn more about sacred anatomy, Adrian, I know you're on your path here. But what you'll find is that we deconstruct the ego with certain pieces that we do. Life patterns, we deconstruct the ego. Soul path congestions, we deconstruct the ego. Because even though we need an ego to stand in partnership with divine source, we don't need to have all the complexities of an ego that's sick, not functioning well. So that's what we release. We release the issues, the problems, the stresses. And, I actually believe that it's possible to let go of more of that than we believe we can. So I'm really grateful that you asked that question. Thanks, Adrian. And thanks, Cheryl, for bringing that back.
Thank you.
You're welcome, hon. You're welcome. Are there more questions, Cheryl? I want to answer. I've got just a few minutes, but I want to answer as many as I can.
Not at this time. They haven't come to the chat, so you seem to have satisfied people's curiosity so far.
Okay, well, good. So here's what I'd really like to do. I'd really like to share a little bit about what's coming up in Sacred Anatomy Academy. We have just a couple of minutes, so let me go ahead and do that. Cheryl, why don't we see when the next... Okay, so there's more Friday Anatomies. There's September 20, October 25, November 22. And it's just an hour, so save these dates and come on back. Tell your friends and come and get your questions in right away, and we'll rock and roll. All right, and then we also have the free Sacred Anatomy Secret. Right now we're in the process with an Edge class, which wonderful students. Thank you for coming, guys. It's great to see you. And the Sacred Anatomy Secret is the free class that introduces you to what the Edge class is about. And that class registration will open soon for that, and it's January 22nd. So if you want to attend that, just put on your calendar that it's coming. And also the Edge class will start, the next one will start on February 3rd, and it'll be Mondays and Wednesdays. We record all the classes. You have access to them if you're registered, and you can stay up with the class if you can't make every single one of the course days. Then I want to just promote my book a little bit. This is a wonderful thing to have in your library. It's got not just 88 pictures all through it, but it's got a whole lot of information about who and what we are. And it has exercises in it that you can do. So exercises, content, there's shares from people who've been exposed to Sacred Anatomy, energy medicine, and their experience of it. And it is a groundbreaking, paradigm-shifting book. It's one of the most fun stories I have about my book was when I sent out, I don't know, you send out like 20 or 30 copies to be reviewed by people. And one of the reviewers had just had a mastectomy and had these rough, really terrible raw scars on her chest and a lot of emotional content there. And I sent my book to her, and she fell asleep with it open on her chest, right on top of the scars. And when she'd gone to bed that night, they were red and even oozing. And the morning when she woke up, they were like regular skin color. So some people have slept on the book. Some people leave it open on their face or their head or their body. It seems to have some kind of charge and emotional, real soothing quality. So I recommend my book. It's available on Amazon. And then there's the fairy book, Magical Beings of the Natural World. Yeah, I got inspired to write this. People responded to one of my YouTube posts about connecting with the fairy world. And it just created like kind of a firestorm, and a whole bunch of people talked to me about fairies. And so I thought, well, Jesus, I better write a book. So I put all my fairy stories in there, and then I realized I didn't. But there's a lot of them in there, and pictures too. And then we sell here at Sacred Anatomy Academy, we sell the hot rod, the Sacred Anatomy hot rod. It's the world's finest dowsing rod. I teach dowsing in one of my classes that follows the Edge class. There's a class called Energetic Hygiene. And I advise you to buy one of these amazing rods. They're incredibly lightweight. They're made out of titanium and anodized aluminum. They come in different colors, red, green, blue, and silver. And they are incredibly quiet, lightweight, and fast. They're the hot rod. So those are the things I wanted to share with you. I hope you will join me again. I loved seeing you. I'm so happy. We had people from all over the world today, and that was just spectacular. So I look forward to more. Love and kisses to all of you. This video that we've made today will be available. You'll be able to look at it when you are tuning in to our website. You can get it, and Bobby is going to send it out to anybody and everybody who registered. So people who were unable to see the whole thing can look at it there. All right. Thanks so much for joining me. May you have a beautiful day. Give thanks today for your life. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.